Y'all have heard me say it numerous times during the course of last season. You probably heard me say it during the offseason, and now you're about to hear me say it already 6 games into the NBA season. The NBA is the gift that just keeps on giving. 6 games in the NBA season, we already find ourselves with our first bit of drama with the Memphis Grizzlies suspending Ja Morant for their next game against the Toronto Raptors, in a situation where head coach Tomas Isalo called out Ja Morant for his effort and leadership after their 5 point loss to the Los Angeles Lakers the other night. And Ja Morant's response was, according to reports, deemed dismissive and inappropriate. Now, I will say, as a media member, somebody who has to analyze the situation and formulate an opinion, I do wish we had a little bit more context or some type of concrete evidence to say what was said specifically. It's such a vague description of like dismissive and inappropriate. Like, what is that? Is it level 5 inappropriate? Did he curse him the hell out? Was it mild? Did he just snap back out of frustration? Again, it's so vague and plain. It's hard to really figure out how you want to address it. I can start with this. I am a little bit disappointed. As a Ja Morant fan, he's my favorite player on the Grizzlies. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA from an excitement level. And I was rooting for Ja, and I'm still am rooting for Ja because he made a few mistakes, right? The gun situation was dumb, ignorant, and it made no sense, right? As a guy who had so much responsibility and so much going for him, there is no excuse to put out there other than him being immature and just making an ignorant, dumb decision, right? Especially being a role model that Ja is, and just again, box office player and just character and pizzazz and swag, or the young kids call it aura. People love Ja Morant when he's on the floor. They love everything about him. He got a certain type of swag, right? It was disappointing to see as a fan. I'm the fan that is always going to be on, the side of the truth. I'm not a fan of a team player or anything enough to lie or kiss ass or turn a blind eye. That's just not me. So we start there, and then again, that situation in itself sets the team back. It does, because I know a lot of people now, they look back at the time where Ja was like, we fine in the West, and it's funny now with revisionist history. But at that time, I don't know if he was too wrong, because the Memphis Grizzlies were on the upward trajectory. He was reaching superstar status, MVP conversation. He had every right to think and believe that about their team. You know what I mean? He had every right. And so for him to go through all of that and put the team there, it took them back, because obviously they can't be that team that's fine in the West if they don't have Ja Morant. And it was a constant distraction, a constant cloud for him and people that supported him that you just really couldn't ignore. Anytime his name came up, anytime his jersey was worn, or anytime the Grizzlies came up, that was the main talking point, was Ja Morant and the decisions that he made, plural, because he made a couple of decisions at that time, and how it impacted and how dumb, stupid, and he should be banned or like suspended longer or whatever. It was a whole lot. He comes back from that, and since then, it's been hard for him to stay on the floor. He's had some injury history. I'm looking, he hasn't played more than 65 games since his rookie year, which is another conversation to be had. And not only is it him, it's a problem with the entire team, because that was a year he tried to come back. He only played 9 games. Desmond Bane was hurt. Jaren Jackson was the only one that was on the floor for the most part. And it was good to see his game grow. And so over those seasons, right, because this has been years, I know it kind of feels like a blur and everything is so hard to keep up with, especially for me since the pandemic and the bubble. Everything is really a blur. But the last time Ja Morant was an All-Star was 2023. And the last time he was All NBA was 2022. To put things in perspective, around both of those years, Paolo Banchero had got, drafted and was a rookie. The year before that, when he was All NBA, I believe Cade Cunningham was a rookie. Kevin Durant was still on the Nets, being coached by Steve Nash. The Oklahoma City Thunder was a below 500 basketball team. Victor Wembanyama was not a thing yet. The entire basketball world was completely different. The landscape was so different back when Ja Morant was All-Star, All-NBA, MVP voting level. And we just haven't seen that. And so my biggest thing for the Grizzlies coming into this season was like, where do they fit? And where does their timeline fit with everything? And that's why it was very interesting for me last year, seeing Taylor Jenkins get fired with 9 games left in the season, seeing them trade Desmond Bane over the offseason. It was interesting, Because when you look at the Western Conference now, back when they were on point and Ja was peaking and not even peaking, but starting to transcend, and so with the Grizzlies, again, it looked like they were fine in the West and they were on the trajectory of being what the Timberwolves have been over the last couple of seasons, back-to-back conference finals. They were on the same trajectory as like a Thunder team, which when I say that, I just mean young, fun, and, winning. Now, the Thunder took it to a whole new threshold, winning 68 games, winning the NBA Finals, having the league MVP, Finals MVP, and looking like they're on track to do it again. Don't know if the Grizzlies were ever on that level, but they were a part of that young, fun trajectory of teams that were going to be at the top of the standings. And they took some steps back. And as an organization, some of the things they did to me was a sign of saying, we got to look at some things. We have to look at some things. Trading Desmond Bane was interesting. That let me know that they weren't all the way confident in the core. It also wasn't the worst move in the world because you got 5 picks back. And with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, if they show you any hope with your drafting ability, getting a Jalen Wells, getting a Cedric Coward, you like what you saw in certain stretches from Zach Edey. With all of those draft picks, you'll move away if you feel like this is a team to reinvest into. But reinvest into. To me, some of the signs the Grizzlies has shown was they weren't completely sure if this is a team or a core that was worth all of those investments that it once was. And to me, this season was important for Ja Morant to reassure not only the NBA and the public, but the Grizzlies that this is worth investing to. And so my hope was not that the Grizzlies were going to do anything astronomical. That would have been fine too if they were a surprise team or something like that. But it was just for Ja to remind everybody. I felt like the momentum was there, right? He's back with his shoe, one of the best shoes, if not the best shoe in the game. That's always very strong and prominent for a player. He's coming in healthy. Jaren Jackson they're as healthy as I think they were going to be. Now, the team, you're missing Ty Jerome, you're missing Brandon Clark, you're missing Zach Edey. But it's still, to see Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson on the floor, I think is all Memphis and the crowd and the fanfare really wants to see. I just didn't want any trouble. And 6 games into the season, we get this situation. Some of the things and the issues that I think Ja Morant has could be valid. But again, I think when your character and your perception is already a little damaged, you already looked at as immature, you already look like you have a bit of an ego. The first sign of your first-time head coach trying to challenge you, which is one of the things that has been prominent in his reputation, is that Tomas Isolo is not afraid to coach. He's not afraid to coach hard. Not only has that been talked about by previous stops, but a few Grizzly players have spoken on it early and during training camp. I think G.G. Jackson talked about it. Ty Jerome and some other guys maybe talked about it. And yeah, that was something that was already known. And the first time it happened in game 6 of the NBA season, for this to be the response. And not only was that the response that Ja had, but the post-game interview after, which went public about ask the coaching staff. Again, it just probably coming off of everything he came off of and to get back to where he's at, where he's essentially getting another chance, right? Because nobody is talking about those issues anymore. It reignites that fire. It really does. And I'm going to be honest, for Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies, the most craziest part about the situation is that they need each other. They really need each other. No matter how Ja Morant feels, because a lot of this type of stuff ends up leading to a trade. And I do feel like this has been 6 or 7 years. I feel like the potential of this team, the trajectory, looking at like the Spurs emergence, looking at how dominant the Thunder remain, even without a J-Dub, looking at the Nuggets, the Warriors and the way they've started, the Grizzlies are just in the midst of it. But I don't look at them as a real threat. I don't. It's hard to really even evaluate them at a full level right now because they're still implementing so much and getting used to so many different things. They have so many injuries. We don't know if we should wait for the injuries. We don't know if more injuries are to come just because based off what we know with the Grizzlies, like it's hard to really get a grasp of them. But one of the grasps I can say that I have is that they're not going to come out of the West anytime soon. I don't have that same feel about this team in the direction like I did those 3 or 4 years ago, if I'm just being completely honest, because I'm looking at the other teams and I'm like, holy shit. Y'all was supposed to take care of business. Now that's why some of the stuff that Ja did, it's even it's magnified a little bit, because now that the Wemby, Spurs, Harper, Castle, Fox era has begun, a lot of y'all that had a window those so many years ago, fumbling it wasn't the right decision. Shout out to the Nuggets for getting them one. Shout out to OKC for getting them one. But this Wemby situation on the horizon could be really, really, really real. It could be really, really real. I didn't even mention the Rockets. The Rockets are now involved as well. So, yeah, it's like the Grizzlies at best. At their best version, the Grizzlies are what, the 5th, 6th seed? They're avoiding the play-in? And this is a year where you want to show the Grizzlies organization and higher-ups that this core is worth reinvesting to. And now with this situation, I don't know if Ja cares about this team being invested to. I don't know if Ja is going to want to be here. I don't know if the Grizzlies are the biggest fans of Ja right now. And I don't know if they're going to go through another head coach for Ja Morant or anything like that. But they need each other. Because I'll tell you this right now. Based off everything that I said and everything I laid out, as far as some of the trouble, as far as the ability to be on the floor, because I'm looking at it right here, 67 games is the most games he played, and that was his rookie year. Right now, Ja Morant is averaging 20 points, 6.5 assists, 3 rebounds on 40% shooting from the field and 15% shooting from 3. 6-game sample size. 6-game sample size. But it's not a great start. He's had a game winner against the Suns. He's had some of the moments. But the overall stats have taken a big hit, and these aren't anywhere near all-star numbers. And I bring that up because when you talk about trades, right, we saw the Shams report, teams are monitoring and checking in. I see that, and I'm pretty sure that's real. But what is even Ja Morant's value right now? We talked about it a bit on Numbers on the Board, and it was something that lingered in my mind even more after, where I'm just kind of thinking, like, what is Ja Morant's market? Is it 2 first-round picks? Is it 3? Is it a young player that's a star? Who wants Ja Morant? What team, like, are the Pelicans, because they invested everything there, but they gave their draft pick to the damn Hawks to get Derek Queen, so do they even have enough? What do the Grizzlies want in return? Is what the Grizzlies are going to ask for going to be perceived as worth it to the NBA? And, like, especially coming off a year where he played 50 games last year, played 9 before, had the suspension, 61, 57, 63. It's been years since he was MVP vote type guy or all-star or all-NBA. Like, there are some concerns here. And that's why I felt like the best thing to do was to come in, have a trouble-free season. And even if y'all wasn't going to win, remind these folks. Give them 25, 26 points a game. Give some explosive performances, 45 here, 52 there. Drag this team to the playoffs. Be an all-star. Be in that conversation of top 5 point guards. And at least just get the value up around the NBA. Kind of rebrand yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I don't like the start. And I don't like the tension and the bumpiness that I think this could happen. Now, there is a different fold that I will say, and not a lot of people are going to say this, because a lot of people are going to want to be negative with Ja. I'm rooting for Ja to get everything together. But again, I'm going to keep players accountable when they're wrong. That's just the way it is. There is a side where this was some bullshit. They realize it's 6 games in. They realize they need each other. Ja Morant, the team has contractual control for the next 3 years. It's like this year and 2 more years on the contract. So it ain't like next year he's a free agent and can do what he want to do. And his value is going to be in a weird place because it's the start of the season. Who is really like ready to make a trade 6 games into the season? Theoretically, they have to figure out a way to come together and close this out. Now, some of the issues that Ja has that they said is some of the rotation stuff. If you know anything about Tomas Isalo, which I think I talked about him in the video, I'm gonna make sure that video is up in the recommendeds at the end of this video, because I did do the deep dive on the Grizzlies and I went through a lot of things, and that's the first time you probably would hear about Noah LaRoche, who consulted the Heat, and he was part of the system that the Heat are running. Very limited pick and rolls, all that stuff that kind of was problematic for the Grizzlies last year, because with a player like Ja Morant, you want pick and rolls, you want penetration, and you want him to be able to make defenses collapse. But I think Tomas Isolo came up in that video, and one of his things that we saw from overseas when he was coaching Paris and they won a Euro Cup and different things like that was he has a style of playing fast and playing hard. And I know those are things that are so cliche, and every coach says that, but he really means it to the point where if you look, no player on the Grizzlies right now, and I don't think this is a coincidence, and I don't think this would really even change that much, no player is averaging 30 minutes a game. Ja Morant leads the team in minutes at 28. And things like that, in a league where best players are used to playing 35, 36, 37 minutes a night, that's a big difference. So, like, for perspective, yeah, Ja Morant played 28 minutes this year through 6 games. The previous years, he's played 35 minutes a game, 32 minutes, 33. Last year, he played 30 minutes at the least. This was by far the career low of him, 28. He's never not averaged 30 minutes or more. And again, he leads the team in minutes. So things like that is a little different. The substitution patterns, you're not in the game for that long with Tomas Isolo because his theory is he's going to keep those substitutions going to always keep a fresh group of guys out there on the floor so that they can play at their hardest and their fastest. And if you're playing fast and you're really giving your full effort, it's hard to play a 9-minute stretch of basketball. So the substitution patterns, it's a real thing. So again, I don't want to baby Ja Morant or make excuses because the way he went about it was wrong. But I am not surprised that Ja or any player would have something to say. That's not regular. You get what I'm saying? Guys want to be on the floor. Guys want to be playing. And in a year like this for Ja Morant, that was a very important year to come out and remind the NBA, so to speak, or just put his best foot forward and show I'm still Ja Morant. Because Ja Morant is only, 26 years old? Jaren Jackson's probably 27. These guys are still young and hungry in the NBA and still have things to prove. I know the last thing they want to be doing is playing 26, 27, 28 minutes a night. That's just not what they want to do. And when you play that low of minutes, just with obvious intelligence, the numbers are going to drop. And we know, if we just being honest, players want their numbers. The numbers is what help you go and get your bag with your max extension. Your numbers is what get you all-star looks. It helps to get the all-MVP, all-NBA looks. Guys want their numbers for various reasons, right? And you're only 3-3. So I understand some of the frustration there. That's not surprising at all. But I just don't know. I don't know what the Memphis Grizzlies are going to do. Because, again, Ja Morant doesn't have crazy value. I don't even know what his value would be if this wasn't a situation going on. The way that the Western Conference looks without this situation, even with Ja averaging 23 or 24 points per game, I don't know where to put them. And I just don't know. I don't know what's the perceived market for Ja. 6 games into the season, I just don't know how many teams they even calling. Again, this is another situation that goes against Ja. It makes him look more immature. It makes him look like he's hard to, put into the organization. And in order to get over that, they're going to have to reconcile, get on the same page, and kind of use each other. He's going to have to play his best basketball in order to get value for teams to buy into him. And, they're going to have to get him to look like he's worth multiple first-round picks. Because I'll tell you one thing. If the pivot for the Grizzlies is at the end of this year or during the offseason, we talk about back-to-back years where they trade Desmond Bane and Ja Morant, and they're able to get the 4 or 5 picks they got for Desmond Bane. You talk about another 3 for Ja Morant. With their ability to draft, especially coming off a draft where you got Cedric Howard, who's looked like one of the most intriguing rookies to start this season, you give this team 8 picks with their talent for eye and that much flexibility. You allow Tomas Isolo to really install his principles as a basketball coach with a young team who is going to buy in because they don't really have any choice. Ja Morant is a superstar. It's hard for superstar players to buy in. It's hard to really get them to buy in because teams run around that star-led player. It's not college basketball where the coach is the rock star and the leader. And that's always the toughest thing in the NBA. So that would be a good situation for them. And, I just – tough situation in Memphis. Again, I'm a Ja Morant fan, so I would love to see it get handled correctly. But, again, it's tough. It really is. They could sweep this under the rug and get on one accord and get on track. or this could be the beginning of the end. I am going to put my money on the beginning of the end based off everything I know, based off the landscape of out West. Yeah, even some fans was calling out Jaren. They said, hey, a lot of attention is going to Ja, right? Because Ja, I guess, had the response, and Ja went to the post-game interview with the way that he did. But a lot of fans were saying even Jaren in that game looked checked out in the second half and just didn't really care. And so if that's the feeling, then this is going to be an issue that's going to have to be addressed, because a lot of players then, if your two best players feel this way, they may agree. They may agree. They may not be with the patterns and everything like that. And again, this would be a huge L and huge reflection on the GM Kleiman and just the Grizzlies in general, because you can't fire Tomas Isolo now. You can't fire him after you did that extreme firing of Taylor Jenkins and the way he had the Memphis Grizzlies looking. You're going to run through two coaches in 2 seasons and have to do all of this again next year, re-implementing a system and figuring out who, like, you can't do that. You can't do that. So it's already a tug of war of power and ego and like a bunch of stuff going on in Memphis. We'll see how this ends out. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts. I am very, very interested to see how the rest of everybody feels about this situation and different details that I may not have thought about or even brought up. Please get active in the comments. I will be reading and responding and trying to see what y'all say as well. Y'all have a good Sunday. I appreciate y'all as always. See y'all this week with much more basketball talk. I'm out. Peace.